Hello, I'm Dr. Ireland, a member of the Admissions Committee at LSU School of Dentistry. Part of the interview process for admissions to LSU School of Dentistry is the chalk carving manual dexterity test. This is an important part of the process, and I would not recommend that you wait until you are invited to the interview to begin practicing. Although I will go over the carving design and dimensions on this tutorial, I will post them as a separate link on this page, as well as the vendors who sell the chalk and the knife. So let's begin. Okay, this is a finished carving, and I'll point out some features that are very important. The first feature is that it has a domed end. This dome should be completely domed like the top of the Louisiana Superdome. The tip of the chalk is carved down to a square that's tapered in 3/16 of an inch square. The middle section of the chalk has a cutout that is 1/4 of an inch deep, and this surface parallels the surface of this slope right here. On the test that you will take, you'll be given a lead pencil, a piece of chalk, a wooden handled knife from Buffalo Dental, and a ruler. You will have 35 minutes to accomplish this test, and I really suggest that you practice in front of a clock to facilitate your skill in accomplishing it in the period of time allowed. Okay, the first thing that you want to do is to make your measurements. You'll have to be able to do this quickly so you don't waste time. The first thing that I would do is to mark a dot in the center of the chalk. And usually you can, after you practice this a good bit, you can pretty well estimate where the center of that dot is going to be. The next thing we want to do is to draw a line through the dot from the 12 o'clock position of the chalk to the 6 o'clock position of the chalk. Then we want to draw a perpendicular line to that, also through the dot. And you should see the center of the chalk bisected by a line this way and a line this way. Next, we want to use our center dot and measure so that the square is a 3/16 inch square centered on the dot that you created in the middle of the chalk. And now on the opposite end of the chalk, we're going to measure and draw a line 3/16 of an inch from the end, and this is going to be the side that we use to create the dome. Okay, now I'm going to begin carving the dome of the chalk, rolling the chalk as I turn it. You should always carve with the blade toward yourself. Keep the chalk rolling and the dome will be concentric as you proceed toward completion. Okay. We're progressing further along now, but you can see the dome is too flat. One thing that you can do, you can put a little dot there in the center before you start, and that will help you keep it concentric around there. So now I'm going to go ahead and continue, and we'll try to make this nice and dome shaped. Okay, now I've completed the carving of the dome, and you can see it's nice and concentric. It looks like the roof of the Louisiana Superdome, and you can still see the remnant of my dot there, showing that it hasn't taken away from the very tip top, but it's not flat, it's dome shaped. Now we're going to go ahead and begin the point of the chalk, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, now we're back to the other end of the chalk, and you can see the square that's centered on the center dot, and I've drawn a line at the end of the chalk 3/4 of an inch from the end of the chalk, and you can see that right there where I have it drawn. Okay, now I'm going to use this line right here to begin carving the first stage of my square point. Okay, always carve toward yourself, as I said. That way you can see what you're doing. If you keep carving down, holding the knife in this position, however, eventually you'll saucer this out. So we don't want that. So change directions and come from a diagonal periodically so that you don't end up with a scooped out or spoon-shaped slope going down toward the square. You have to be careful, however, as you approach your square dimensions here, that you don't ding the corner. So if you're carving like this, it's very easy to ding the corner. So carve at a diagonal towards yourself, and that way part of the blade will be supported by the surface. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and continue, and we'll pick up later on as I progress more toward the finished product on this end. Okay, I'm finishing my fourth side now, and I will turn it towards you so that you can see it's square on the end, 3/16 square, and the sides are perpendicular to one another. So now we're going to go ahead and begin the center portion of this. We save that till last so that you don't inadvertently break the chalk. One thing that I might mention also, if you have a rough place, smooth it out with a knife. Don't use your finger to rub it because it'll take off points for using your finger to smooth it. Everything should be done with the knife. You want to be careful, as I said, that you don't ding the corners here because that's a common problem. You know, it can be, as I said, avoided by carving at a diagonal so that the blade is supported by the surface of the chalk. Okay, to draw the center cutout, I've drawn a line down the center of the chalk which bisects this flat plane right here. I've also drawn a line 3/4 of an inch from the end, and this line right here is 3/4 of an inch from this one. I've done the same thing on this side here for the opposite side of the cutout. So now with the cutout determined where it's going to be, I can begin carving. Okay, now I've got it pretty well shaped up, and you can see we've got it nice and square, and this plane right here is parallel to this plane right here. This is a pretty nice finished piece of chalk.